Okay, now we can create an Android app that demonstrates the use of broadcast and broadcast receivers in your Android application. So from this application you can learn about how to implement broadcast and broadcast receivers, how to send your own broadcast, how to receive the system broadcast, how to receive the broadcast through the manifest declared receivers, how to receive the broadcast through the context registered receivers, etc. So start a new Android Studio project, specify your application name, select MD activity, okay, here the project is created. So here we are going to create a simple Android application that save all the incoming number details to the SQLite database, and later we are going to display the incoming call list on a RecyclerView. So for this application we need a RecyclerView. So the first thing, we have to add the dependency for using RecyclerView. So open Gradle script file and add the dependency for using RecyclerView. Now sync the project. Okay, now the project sync finishes. So now inside activity main.xml here we need to add a RecyclerView. Okay, here I add all the needed view components to the activity main.xml. So here the root element is a linear layout that contains a text view and a recycler view. So here I simply remove the recycler view from the layout by using the attribute visibility into gone. So we can display the recycler view only after there is an incoming number available on the database. So first we are going to display this text view with information no incoming numbers. So this is the text view with ID empty text, and here is the recycler view with ID recycler view. Okay, now go to main activity.java. Here we have to declare some variables. Now declare variables for text view. Now we need some layout manager for the recycler view. Now we can initialize these variables. First one is the recycler view. Now find it. Now initialize the text view. First typecast that one into text view. Now find it. Now initialize the layout manager. Here we need a simple linear layout manager and pass the context. And now set the layout manager on the recycler view. Now for improve performance, add some parameter, set has fixed size into true. Okay, now we can start the SQLite database. We can create the database. So for the SQLite database we need a contract class. So here I'm going to create a new Java class with the class name dp contract. Here I declare two variables, table name and incoming number. And now we need to create another Java class for the database operation. So create another Java class with the class name db helper. And this class extends SQLite open helper. And here you need to implement two methods. First one is on create and second one is on upgrade. Here I declare some variables: database name, database version, and here is the SQL command for create table. Create table, get the table name from the contract class, and here the first column is ID, that is of integer type. It is primary key and auto increment. Second one is get the column name from the contract class, and the second column type is text type, and here is the SQL command for drop table. Okay, now we can create the table, create the database. So for this class we need one constructor, and for this constructor we need one parameter, that is the context object. So here there is no default constructor for the superclass, so call the super keyword, first pass the context, now pass the database name and cursor factory object, and final one is the database version. So here the database name, now there is no cursor factory, we can pass null for it, and finally database version. So from the constructor we create the database. So now we can create the table from the onCreate method. So for the onCreate method we have one parameter, that is an object of SQLite database. So by using that object we can call a method called execute SQL, and in that method you have to pass the SQLite, you can pass the SQL query. So here it is the create statement. So from the onCreate method we create the table. Now from the onUpgrade method, first thing we have to drop the table if it is exist. So pass the drop table command, and then you can call the onCreate method from here again. So for the onCreate method you have to pass the object of SQLite database. So here we create the database and we create the table. Now we need to create a separate method for add information to the database. So for this method we need two parameters. First one is the incoming number, and second one is the SQLite database object. So first we have to create some variables for content values. So now we need to add the needed data is in the form of name value pair to the content values object. Get the column name from the contact class. Now pass the data. Here it is number. Okay, now we can add information to the table. So use the SQLite database object, and you can call a method called insert. For that method you need to pass table name, null column hook, and content values. Get the table name from the contract class. There is no null column hook, so we can pass null for it. And final one is content values. So from this method we save information to the database. Now we need another method for read information from the database. So here the return type is a cursor object. I name it as read number, and for this method we need one parameter, that is an object of SQLite database. So the first thing we have to specify the column names. For that here I declare a string array. I name it into projections. So here there are two columns. First one is ID. Now the second column, get the column name from the contract class. Okay, now we can retrieve information from the table and return that data. So return, here the return type is cursor. So use the SQLite database object and you can call a method called the query. So the first thing, you have to pass the table name. Now the projections. Now there are a number of parameters are needed for this method. So you have to pass 5 null values. So this method read information from the table. Okay, now we successfully add all the needed classes for the SQLite database. Now we can set up the RecyclerView. So here create another Java class with the class name incoming number. And for this class we need two parameters, ID and number. ID is integer and number is string value. Okay, now we need getter and setter methods for these two variables. Okay, for this class we need a constructor. And for the constructor we need two parameters. First one is ID and second one is a string called the number. Now from the constructor call the setter method. Okay, so we use a recycler view for display all the incoming number list. So for the recycler view, for display each row we need a separate layout. So open layout file and create a new layout file. I name it as item view. So here I add all the needed view components to this layout item view. So here I add two text view. So here is the preview. So the first text view display the ID and second text view display the incoming number. So the first text view with ID txt ID and the second text view with ID txt number. So this layout represents each item on the recycler view. Okay, now we can create an adapter for the recycler view. So create another Java class with the class name recycler adapter. And this class extends adapter, and here you need to implement some methods. First, here I'm going to define the view holder class. That class extends view holder. Here we have to create a constructor for this class. Now specify the generic type for this class. Here it is view holder. And for this method, the return type is an object of the view holder class. And for this method, the first parameter is an object of viewHolder class. So here I'm going to declare some variables. We need an array list that contains some object of the incoming number class. And here create a constructor for this class. And the constructor contains one parameter. It is an object of array list that contains some object of incoming number. Now initialize the array list from this constructor. Now from the getItemCount method, return the size of the array list. Now inside the viewHolder class, here I'm going to create some variables for text views. I name it as ID and number. Now initialize these two variables from the constructor of this class. It is of type text view, so use this parameter item view. It is txt id. Now the second variable number. It is also text view. It is txt number. Now go to the onCreateViewHolder method. First here create some variables for view class. Layout dot, here it is item view. Now from this method we need to return an object of the viewHolder class, and for the viewHolder you need to pass the parameter of view. Now go to the onBindViewHolder method. So now we can set the text on those text views. So use this parameter holder. First we can set the ID. Set the text. Here the ID is integer. So integer dot toString. Now get that one from the array list. Get the object from the array list. And pass the position. Now call the getter method getID. Now second one is the number. Array list dot get position and call the getter method get number. Okay, now we set up the adapter for the RecyclerView. Now go to main_activity.java. Here create some variables. We need an array list here that contains some object of incoming number. We need a variable for adapter, recycler adapter. I name it as adapter. Now initialize the adapter. New recycler adapter and pass the array list. And finally set the adapter for the RecyclerView and pass the adapter. Okay, now if there is any data available on the SQLite database, we have to read the data and display the data on the recycler view. So for that, here I am going to create another method. Read from DB. So first here we have to declare some variables, DB helper, and pass the context. Now we need some variables for SQLite database. Get writable database. So for read information from the table, we need some cursor object, DB helper dot read number, and pass the SQLite database object. So now we need to check some condition. If cursor there is a method called get count, cursor dot get count greater than 0. That means there is informations are available on the table. In that case, we can read the data. So while cursor dot move it to next, first read the number and second one is ID. So number equal to cursor dot get string, cursor dot get column index, get the column name from the contract class incoming number. Now read the ID. It is of integer type, get int, cursor dot get int, and get the column index. Here the column index is, so cursor dot get column index. Here the column name is ID. So here we got number and ID from the table. Now we need to save this information to the incoming number class in the form of an object. And finally, we have to save that object to the array list. So array list dot add new incoming number. First one is ID and second one is number. So here data are available and we read the data. Now we can initialize that adapter. We can call the method called notify data set changed on the adapter because there is new informations are available. So here data are available and we update the adapter. So now we can display the recycler view. So RecyclerView dot set visibility into visible. At the same time, we can hide the text view. So there is a text view available with ID empty text. We have to hide that text view. Set visibility into gone. So before going to do all these things, we can clear the array list. And here we can close the cursor and we can close the DB helper. Okay, now we need to call this method from the onCreate method. Okay, now we have to save the incoming number to the SQLite database. So if there is an incoming number, and even if the application in the background, we have to get that incoming number and save that incoming number to the SQLite database. So here we need a broadcast receiver. So here I am going to create a new Java class called number receiver. And that class extends a broadcast receiver. You have to implement one method. So here I'm going to create a broadcast receiver. I'm going to register the broadcast receiver through the manifest file. So open Android manifest.xml, and within the application element I'm going to add a receiver tag. So here the receiver class name is number receiver, and here you have to specify the indent filter section. Now specify the action for the indent filter. Here we need to get the font state. So the incoming number alert is available on the font state. So I use the indent filter indent action font state. Now we need to specify the permission for use the font state. Read font state. Now go to the number receiver.java. So if there is an incoming call arrived, even if the application in the background, our application is capable of receiving that broadcast, and from this method we can get the incoming number. So here we need some variables. Indent dot get string extra, telephony manager dot extra state. Now here we need to check some condition. If state dot equals telephony manager dot extra state ring. So in that case we can get the incoming number. Indent dot get extras dot get string telephony manager dot extra incoming number. Now we can save the number to the SQLite database. So create an object of DB helper, and pass the context. Now we need an object of SQLite database, and DB helper dot get a writable database. Now we can save the number to the database. So DB helper dot save a number. First pass the number. Now pass the SQLite database object. After that we can close the database connection. So DB helper dot close. Okay, now we can test our application. Okay, now the virtual device is ready. Now we can run the application. Okay, now the application available on this device. Now here is the text view. There is no incoming numbers. So I just remove that application. So this virtual device is running on Android version 6.0. So you have to manage the permission explicitly. So go to settings, go to apps. Here is our application, and go to permissions. Here we need one permission, read the font state. So enable that permission. Now here I am going to call this device. So this is the number. So try to make a call device. Now the call available on this device. Now end call. Now we can test our application, and here is the incoming number. So now our application working fine. So now the application is in the foreground. Now the application is running. Now I try to make a call from another number and call this device. Now the call available on the device, end that call, but here the UI is not updating. I just remove that application from the device memory. Now open it again, and here is the number. So now we need to update the UI in real time. So if the application in the foreground and if there is an incoming number, we have to display that number in real time. So for that we have to send our own broadcast. We have to send a broadcast from our application to inform the UI there is new data available on the SQLite database. So for that go to main activity.java. Here I am going to declare one variable, broadcast receiver. I name it into broadcast receiver. Okay, now we need one more variable inside the contract class. So open db contract, and here I am going to add one more variable. Update UI filter. And use the application package name. Okay, now go to main activity. So here we declare some variables called the broadcast receiver. Now from the onCreate method, I am going to initialize that variable. So broadcast receiver equal to a new broadcast receiver. Here is the onReceive method. So from the onReceive method, here I am going to call that method called the read from DB. So from the read, inside the read from DB, if there is some data available on the array list, we clear that data. Now we read the information from the SQLite database, and finally we call the method called the notify data set change on the adapter. So this will update the UI. Okay, now we need to register the receiver. So here I am going to use the onReceive method for register the receiver. Register receiver. For this method you need to pass two parameters. First one is the broadcast receiver object, and second one is the indent filter object. Here the broadcast receiver is broadcast receiver. Now create an indent filter and get the filter name from the contract class, update UI filter. So if you register a receiver from the onReceive method, you have to unregister from the onPause method. So override the onPause method. So from here you have to call a method called the unregistered receiver and pass the broadcast receiver. Okay, now we have to send a broadcast from the incoming number class. So open incoming number receiver class. So from this class we have to send a broadcast. So after save the number to the SQLite database, from here we can send our own broadcast. For sending a broadcast we need an indent object. And get the indent filter name from the contract class. Now use the context, send a broadcast and pass the indent object. Okay, now we can test our application again. Okay, now here the application available on this virtual device. Now we are going to make a call. Now here the application in the foreground. Now try to make a call, and here you can see that number is updated real time. Now make another call, and here is the number. So I hope you understand all the concepts of how to implement broadcast and broadcast receivers in your Android application. Please subscribe this channel for getting more Android video updates. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.